Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while, I feel like. A lot of things have been happening, around the world. So I feel like it's been a while since I actually sat down and filmed. I actually forgot to film this last week. I didn't realize it was the end of the month, and I don't know, it just kind of went over my head, the fact that I need to film this. So without further ado, let's get started. So for the month of April, I read 10 and I reread one of those books. So 10, 11-ish books this month, or the previous month. I want to start with that because that was actually the first book that I read, but I finished rereading and reading a supplementary book to that at the end of the month. So let's just get started with that one. So the first book, the book that I will be mainly talking about is Intuitive Eating by Evelyn, Tribole, and Elyse Resch. So I almost talked about this last month because I was about to finish it, or I finished it and it was already the start of April, but this was pretty life-changing. If you guys didn't know, before this I was doing intermittent fasting, and right now I'm not doing that, especially after reading this book. I stopped that because I wanted to focus on really practicing what this book is about. So if you guys didn't know, intuitive eating is where you eat whenever you're hungry and eat whatever it is that you feel like eating, whatever it is, whether it's healthy or not. It's intuitive eating. It's you eating for you. I know that for some people that sounds like, oh, that means that you're gonna pretty much be out of control, right? But intuitive eating is a lot more than that. The main focus of this book, and I feel like a lot of people who are against or don't really believe in intuitive eating kind of misunderstand, is that this is for people who have been struggling with the diet mentality, who have a very much ingrained diet mentality, whether they're aware of it or not. And that's true for me. I didn't grow up overweight. I don't think any kid ever really grows up overweight. Well, there are some, but for the most part, kids aren't really in terms of BMI terms, they're not really overweight. So I gained weight when I was 11, 12, but that's when I had my puberty. That's when that my puberty started, and I heard about this book through actually a sponsored video. They talked about this book briefly, and I think it was Pickup Lines, and I think I've heard about it before too, but it was through her video that I was like, oh, maybe I should check it out. And so I did, and then I realized maybe this is something that I do need, and so I bought an actual copy of the book. This is the 3rd edition, I think, and they're coming out with a 4th edition next month, which I am planning on buying. This still really is relevant to us now, and I didn't realize how much of a diet mentality I had until I read this book, and how much my culture and the way I grew up and my mental processes have affected my intuitive eating or my diet mentality. It was a lot to take in, especially I think the most impactful part of this book for me is the first 2, 3 or 4 chapters. The rest of the chapters are a little bit more into emotional eating. Well, I do have emotional eating, but I think a large part of it is because of the diet mentality that I have. Once I started to realize and process the information that I read from this book in terms of the diet mentality and hitting diet bottom and honoring your hunger, listening to your body, I think the rest of it kind of follows. And I always knew I was a stress eater, but I didn't realize how much of that is not just stress that I feel from things that are happening to me, but things that are directed to me, things that I process from other people that are directed to me that aren't necessarily negative things, but well, they are negative, but they aren't hateful. Not really. But it was very stressful to me. But yeah, growing up, hearing comments from other people about my weight and what I looked like, and being praised for losing weight, and being made to feel uncomfortable when I'm doing diets or when I'm, eating healthier, and just making me feel self-conscious about that definitely affected me growing up. And I kind of knew about it, but this book really put that in the forefront and made me like really process it, because I feel like I always knew that this is going on in my head, but I'm the type of person who doesn't want to believe that I have a problem, or if I do have a problem like that I can take care of it. I don't need really like a lot of help, which I do. And I feel like I realize now that there's a lot going on in here that I really need to process with someone else. Like I do need therapy, and there's nothing wrong with that. And to me, I'm always someone who's like telling people to ask for help, to to tell someone to tell me, and I can help them, and we can help each other, etc., etc. But I never really let myself do that. I've always been the one to be the pillar for someone, that I'm always like shoving my problems at the back of my mind and not really processing it. And so I feel like that's built up throughout the years. And so right now, at this moment, I'm still working through it. Like every day is different. Every day I'm very self-conscious, not in a bad way in terms of what I eat, and in terms of what I think when I'm eating, not really what I eat. So I'm still catching myself making comments and judging myself and directing just hate to myself for like my food choices, for how much I ate, and because I am now aware of my hunger and my satiety levels, or I'm being made aware of that. Whenever I feel like overfull, or there's a scale, and whenever I feel like I'm at an 8 or 9, or just 9 bordering 10, I'm like catching myself making like negative comments about it. So it's a process. I'm still working on it. I read this book. I finished this. I also read or listened to the short audiobook version of it. So I finished that around the end of the month. And then I also was doing the intuitive eating workbook. Now this one I also bought online. And I did make notes for this, but I think again, the first 3-4 chapters were the most important to me, and so I feel like those are the ones that I'm really going back to. Actually, right now I think I need to like refresh this, so it's a good thing that I made like actual notes on that, because I needed it, and I knew I really wanted to work on this, because this is not just working on getting rid of that mentality, but also what is underneath the diet mentality. Like I need to process everything that has been happening in my head that has affected my relationship with food and eating, because I know I love food, I know I love eating, but I always find myself either restricting and then binge eating, which is a big part of the discussion here in this book. And I realized, I think it was a few years ago, that I realized that I was very close to having an eating disorder. But back then, I realized it, but I didn't really process it. Like, I kind of, realized, how I was doing it, like how I was close to, like, my behaviors and my thoughts that were close to having a eating disorder, as well as, like, the habits that I have, the restrictions and the binge eating, and the thoughts of the guilt that I have, like, the just extreme guilt that I have whenever I'm eating food. And just, it was a lot to unpack. Which I kind of already knew years ago, even before I went to college and studied psychology. I always knew that I had a lot of things going on in here that I was afraid of letting other people know and acknowledging, really. And even though I acknowledge it and tell people about it, I'm still afraid of actually dealing with it, asking for help, even though I really need it. Yeah, right now I'm working on that. Yeah, that was a very heavy topic to read about. But honestly, it actually is a mix of fear and relief as well, in that I'm finally going to a place where I'm able or I'm open to being vulnerable and open to someone else, but not in terms of pushing them away or making them not like me or not, have a close relationship with me because of all these things going on inside my head, and it's my way of pushing them away. But in terms of really processing it and taking myself out of that really dark and messed up place, I'm allowing myself that. I'm allowing myself to be open to the idea of me being not just fine and getting along, but also accepting what I don't like or even hate about myself. So, and just loving me, because this is me. And I use it on myself that, like, I love myself, like, this is me. But in terms of, like, whatever, like, well, this is what I am, like, I can't do anything about it now, so whatever. But, like, really truly feel like being open to the idea of being okay, being vulnerable. So yeah, that was a very heavy thing to talk about right now. I think at the same time reading this, I was like, oh, I don't think this is a good idea to be reading that right now, especially with everything that's happening. But I needed it because I realized I'm stressed out and I'm emotional and there's a lot of anxiety going on in here that I'm like just pushing down and not really wanting to acknowledge. So I need to. So that is the first 3 books that we're going to be talking about. So, okay, let's move on. So the next book that I finished was Symptoms of a Heartbreak by Sonia. I'm not even going to try to say that name because I feel like I'm going to butcher that. But here in the story, we are following 16-year-old Syra, who is a girl genius. She graduated med school at 16, and she is interning at the same hospital that her mom works at. She is what was she called? She's a oncology. So it's children with cancer. And so we follow her as she as she interns in her mother's workplace, in her mother's hospital where her mother works too. And she's 16 years old. She's very young, and she's dealing with kids and parents, kids with cancer and their parents, and the struggles that she has being seen as a girl genius or as someone's very young and someone who's just starting. And so she meets a patient and starts to fall for that patient, and so it just makes things even more complicated because in her head she's already seen as a teenager. She can't be seen as a teenager who's not in control of her emotions and falls for a patient first seen as an intern. So we follow her dealing with that, and also staking her place and finding who she is too as well. I mean, she's already graduated college, she's already working as a doctor, and she has a lot going on in terms of her family life and personal life as well, and then she falls for this patient as well. So it was a lot of fun reading that. I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I felt like Syra she's a pretty okay character to follow. I mean, obviously she's a teenager, so even though she is a girl genius and she is a doctor and she's had her degree, like actually graduated with honors and stuff, she's still also again a teenager, and she's going through normal and not so normal stuff for everybody because of where she is right now. And I feel like I am moving slowly out of the YA genre, because I had to like constantly, not really constantly, but I had to like pause for like a few seconds to remind myself we're reading about a young adult. She's 16, and think about yourself at 16. Probably not be doing this, but at the same time, chill. So again, I really enjoyed this. 3 out of 5 stars. It was really fun, and I did enjoy how the relationship between our character, our doctor, and our patient developed, as well as the relationship she has with her family and eventually her other patients, her team at the hospital. It was really, that was, I think, the most enjoyable part of the book for me, is the relationship that we see from the people around her. So yeah. The next book that I finished is Midwinter Blood by Mariko Sedgewick. A lot of people love this book. I saw that I'm looking at the Goodreads rating, it was a 3.7, but I've heard a lot of people like rave about it. Like people that I follow on BookTube, like Reagan rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Alexa rated it 4 stars. Kendra Blake, one of my favorite authors, rated it 5 stars. So I had pretty high expectations for this. At least I will like it, you know, because all of these people that I follow and I trust like it or love it, even though it does have a 2.7 rating in Goodreads, and that makes me feel a little. So I was like, sort of have high expectations, but at the same time, not really. Like I knew I probably might like it, so I went in with that kind of mentality, and I don't know. I rated it as a 1 star. I didn't feel very connected to the characters. It was a little too all over, and it was a little too vague in terms of like what was going on, like what's like the main thing here. So I mean, okay, so we're following, what's their names? Eric and Merle, who I think they're being reincarnated every few years. And so we follow them from 2073 back to the Viking era. I think there was also like World War II. Yeah, there was a couple of different like time eras, and I was so lost. I was listening to this in audiobook, but I kept having to be like to keep going back and forth, and this was a short audiobook because I think the book was only like 300 plus pages. It was a pretty short audiobook. Yeah, the actual book is 264 pages. So the actual audiobook is only like I think 5 or 6 hours or so. So, you know, I was like, what is going on? So I wasn't like, I didn't really feel bad or like I'm wasting my time, you know, going back. But I was just so confused about what was happening. I felt like it was too vague. I needed a little bit more. Like, I understand the mystery, and I love a good mysterious like part of the book where it's like completely explained to us what was going on or what's happening, or like the true context of what's going on. Like, why do they keep getting reincarnated? I mean, we find out at the end of the book, but like the reincarnation parts, like it was just a little too confusing to me. Maybe it's because I was reading it through, I was listening to it rather than reading about it. But I feel like even if I did read about it, I feel like I would still be like, what? Okay, and not really like getting into it and like really caring about the characters as much, which is I think the main thing about, because we're following the two of them and they keep getting reincarnated in different ways, and so yeah, I don't know, it was just a little confusing. So if I could give it 0 stars, I would, but you know, yeah. Okay, so the next book that I read is what is it called? Graphic novel. I was gonna say manga. No, it's not manga. Graphic novel. This is called Laura Jean Keeps Working Out With Me by Mariko Tamaki. Again, this is a pretty fast read. I read it in one sitting because it was a graphic novel. It was only 155 pages, and so yeah, I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy this. I did enjoy reading it. It's a 3 stars. Other people have been like raving about it, like saying that it's really good. It was okay. I mean, like the art was great. I really enjoyed it. I can't do art. I don't have like any artistic part in my body, so I really appreciate the art. It was the actual art was really good. I really enjoyed like looking at it and just like looking at the details, and like I will never be able to do that ever, but I will still appreciate it. But the plot itself was, it's okay. It was it's not bad, but there's really nothing that I really garnered from it. Like, I didn't really get anything from it. So it's probably more like a 2 stars rather than 3 stars. I mean, I probably give it 3 stars because of the art, but in terms of like the story and the plot, I don't really get anything from it. So Laura Jean keeps breaking up with me. We're following, Laura Jean, Frederica Riley. Laura Jean and Frederica Riley are couples, but they keep breaking up. Or like Laura Jean keeps breaking up with her, and she's kind of just like done with it. Or like, why does she keep breaking up with me? Like, what is going on? Does she really want to be with me? Blah blah blah. I mean, first of all, if she keeps breaking up with you, she doesn't want to be with you. Simple as that. If she keeps breaking up with you and you're in high school, I know that some high school couples grow up and pretty much marry each other and have family and be like happy, but like at this point, if this girl can't have a proper relationship with you, keeps breaking up with you, and keeps hooking up with girls and flirting with other girls, it's a no for me. So I'm just like, I understand that you want to, you know, be forgiving and give her another chance and be like understanding, and she's going through a lot, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, if the relationship is as messed up as that, like you keep breaking up and she's not opening up with you, and you want her to open up with you and understand where she's coming from, why she keeps breaking up with you, and why it's affecting your relationship and her relationship with other people, maybe you should not be together. Or, you know, give yourself like a good time to be apart. Maybe if you really are meant to be together, you're gonna get together. So it was, you know, I was like the whole thing in my head that was going on there. I was just like reading, I was like, you know. Other people around them were great, by the way. I really actually liked her best friend. The girl that she meets at this restaurant, I really like them. But there was also a really crazy thing that happened. But yeah, it's, you know, it was fine. But in terms of like the main characters that we're following, Laura Dean and Frederica, not really, no. So what's that? Alright, so the next book that I read is this one right here, A Little Bit of Astrology, An Introduction to the Zodiac by Colin Bedell. This is actually my sister's. She bought this a few months ago. I think it was around December. I think it was around Christmas time. And she's always been fascinated with astrology, and I am a little bit fascinated with astrology, but it's a little bit too complicated for me, or I can get into it as much as she is. So she bought this book, and I don't really remember her talking about this or saying that it's good or whatever, but I figured, you know, maybe I could actually read it, and I really am interested in astrology. By the way, I'm a Virgo. I have a Capricorn moon and a Cancer something. Maybe a Cancer moon. No. Capricorn moon, I mean, that's for sure. And then a Cancer rising? No, wait, no. I don't know. See, I forget. But 1 star. I could not get into it. Like, the first chapter about the main, like, signs, like, you know, the signs that we know about, like, you know, the air, water, earth, fire signs. Cool. Yeah, you know, I can understand that. But as it went on, it's kind of like, I feel like I couldn't get into the writing of the author. Just a little too confusing for me. Like, she talks too much in a lot of figures of speech. It's just a little too much. It's a little too figure of speechy. That's why I'm like, what you say? Like, I understand it, but because I'm like processing it a little too much, I feel like I'm not really like absorbing it. So yeah, 1 star. That was really sad. I wanted to, maybe I could find a different book. I know Kathleen Lights has a different book that she recommends, but maybe I'll read that. We'll see. Okay, the next one is Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Caroline Criado Perez. This one I heard so much about from Books with Emily Fox. I keep thinking Emma something. No, not Emma, Emily. So Books with Emily Fox. She raves about this, and I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed reading this. Throughout the book, I was just like so frustrated by the data gap or the data bias that is. So I was just so frustrated with the data bias and the data gap that is present in different studies that are made to better our world. It's mostly based on men and what the average man's routines are, their build, and so it's just a little too, it was very frustrating to me, and it was very eye-opening in terms of, you know, how unrepresented women are in, you know, the different studies that are made to better our world and our living, and it's all catered to men. And so it's yeah, it was very eye-opening for sure, and it's not attacking anybody. That's the great thing about this. It's not attacking anybody. It's just stating facts. Although there were some parts where the author was a little bit too, in her feelings. Well, not too much, but dial it down a little bit. This is a nonfiction book, and I understand that there's a lot of frustration that is coming out because of what she's finding out and what she's laying out for us. But I think for the most part, yeah, this is a good book. But there were just some moments where the author was getting a little bit too personal. So it's a nonfiction book. I mean, it is her nonfiction book. So I understand that, obviously that she will be stating her own opinions and her own thoughts throughout the books. Because this is her book, and this is, in a way, this is the data that she has, and this is the way that she's interpreting that data. And also this is how that data makes her feel. And so, understand it, but there were just some moments throughout the book that it was just like, okay. Like, I realized that, okay, this is her own opinion, own thoughts, and her own process that she's stating here right now, which I respect. Okay, let's move on. I mean, it's not overwhelming. I mean, if it was, I would be stopping reading it and be like, she's a little too much. But no, she was able to still focus. Like, I want to say 95% of the book is, great facts and great opinions that are not like a little too, just a little too leaning towards attacking people. I don't say she did not attack anyone, but it's very close. I'm just saying. Alright, so the next book that I read is Sweet Cute by Emma Lord. I listened to this in audiobook form. I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. It was so sweet. It was so cute. The whole story. And I love, because right now I'm really getting into baking. I think a lot of us are. And we are following Jack and Pepper. Pepper is an overachiever. She's a perfectionist. And she's the daughter of the owner of one of the massive fast food chains. And she's sort of managing the Twitter account for their restaurant chain. And then Jack is a classmate of Pepper, who is also managing their own restaurant's Twitter account. And because of one iconic grilled cheese recipe that Pepper's family stole from Jack's family-ish, they got into a Twitter fight, and people were like, it kind of went viral, and people were talking about it, and they're saying their own opinions and stuff. And so at first they didn't know it was each other that they were fighting on Twitter. And then they also were chatting through this account called Weasel, through this app called Weasel, where it's just for their school, like it's an anonymous chat for students at their school. But they're also chatting over there, and they have a really good relationship, and stuff, and they don't know each other, so it's kind of like a double whammy. But they do realize pretty soon that they were each other on Twitter. They were talking to each other on Twitter, and they kind of went with it, kind of like, okay, let's fight, but let's not make it personal, So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was so cute to see their relationship grow, and them just realize, just coming to terms with their lives and what's going on in their lives, and just all the stuff that's been going on, and process that. And it was so cute. I loved so much of the history between their families. It was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading Sweet Cute. A lot of people were raving about it. It's kind of like Red, White, and Royal Blue, which I also really loved. A lot of people loved it. And Sweet Cute was so cute too. It was like, actually, like, it was really cute. It was sweet, very, 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 very cute. So it's cute and cheesy, okay, without being cringy. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but there we are. Yeah, it's one of those YA books that I still really enjoy and actually come to love, without it being over the top and being like a little too much, or just I have to like constantly like remind myself, oh, you're reading about teenagers. No, here I'm just like, oh my god, they're so cute. Well, I'm like, oh my god, they're so cute. I don't know what that was about, but again, I really enjoyed Sweet Cute. I really love it. 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, another audiobook that I finished this month or last month was Straight Until Morning by Liz Braswell. This is, I think it's the first installation in the Disney Twisted Tale series, which for some reason, oh no, it's Aladdin. I think it's one of the later ones. Yep. Oh yeah, this just released February. This is a retelling of Peter Pan. And I read this a 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the take on Neverland and what is Neverland and who is Peter Pan. And now we're following 16-year-old Wendy Darling. She's no more. I think she was like 11 or 12 in the original story. Now I never actually read the actual story. I only saw the movie. You know, when we were talking about. So we're following her, and Peter Pan is looking for his shadow that he left in London, and Wendy wanted to return the shadow, but she's gone back to her old life. Wendy has gone back to her old life, but she one day decided to send her to Ireland to find maybe a husband or like settle down before she actually marries. And she doesn't want to do that, and so before she leaves for Ireland, she decides she wants to go back to Neverland one more time. And so when she gets an opportunity to go back to Neverland through Captain Hook, she decides, okay, let's do a bargain stuff. And so she did, and obviously it goes awry. She has Peter's shadow, and Peter's been looking for his shadow. And so she uses it as a bargaining chip. So she thought Peter can finally find it. It's finally Neverland. So he doesn't have to go back to London and find it. So even if, Hook has it or whatever, Peter can still find it again. So that's what she was thinking. But I really enjoyed that we truly explored who Wendy realized what's missing in her life, what she really wants to do. Because after her adventures in Neverland, or, after she met Peter Pan, it's just kind of like, what now? Like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to grow up and, just like everybody else. It's like, it's not me. So she was, trying to figure that out. And so I really enjoyed learning more about Wendy, because we don't really get to see much about her. And also about Peter Pan, and her realizing what Peter Pan represented, and Tinker Bell as well, and, the world, the Neverland, and how it's tied to the world that she came from, and, how she's not the only one who dreams about Neverland. And that other kids who are going through things that are so different from her also affects how things in Neverland work. So it was actually really enjoyable. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun. And I really did enjoy. The best part of it is really just learning about Neverland and the representation of Neverland to dreamers, young dreamers and old dreamers alike. So the last book that I finished for this month is Frankenstein by Shelley. I rated this a 3 stars. I read this mostly through audiobook. I do have this beautiful copy. I started reading it, but I didn't feel like sitting down and reading, so I'm just been like reading through audio, like listening to audiobooks, which is so weird. I used to never get into audiobooks. Now I'm having a hard time going back to physical books, but I think it's an adjustment period because I've been listening to audiobooks so much. So again, Frankenstein, 3 out of 5 stars. This was pretty heavy. I feel like it's pretty short, but I feel like it could have been longer, but in a modern way. Like if someone were to like rewrite it, or like do a dissection of it at the same time, a reimagining of it. Still very much the story, but in a way that's really processing the different topics that are raised here. I did not like Frankenstein, like the actual monster. It just felt like, in a way, I sort of understood that the entitlement that's coming off from him, because he was made by, the monster. He was made by Frankenstein, and Frankenstein wasn't really aware that he's bringing something back to life with its own thoughts and feelings and emotions, and he didn't really put into account like how other people would perceive that, and how this actual creature will grow. So develop. So in a way, they're both wrong. At the same time, Frankenstein ran away from what he did because he was scared. At the same time, I think he was also scared of what it meant that he was able to make this monster out of nothing, and that this monster now is an actual live being, and this person is very dangerous, or this creature is very dangerous. So he's running away from that because it's a little too much for him, and also he's scared and he's guilty because this monster has killed and has sentenced someone to death as well. And Frankenstein's just running away from it and just like, dude. Sometimes I also understand, like, okay, but you have to like actually address it. And so, you know, when he tries to, I'm gonna be very spoilery about it because I will be assuming that you guys have read Frankenstein, but if not, this part is pretty spoilery. So I'll put this down when I'm done with the spoilery part. So when he tries to make a companion for this monster pretty much threatened him. At first he pleaded and then he threatened to, you know, kill the people around him, around Frankenstein, if he doesn't make him a companion that will be with him and not make him feel lonely. It's kind of like Adam and Eve, but it's like a really twisted version. Yeah, I did, you know. But again, and I don't know, I felt like Frankenstein could have just asked for someone's help to like get rid of this monster. Like, yeah, it's essentially killing, but this monster is a murderer, and this monster, although he is, you know, feeling and empathizing and sympathizing as well, there's still a part of him that is okay with killing. And so either you address that and let him live, or get rid of him too, because he's out here pleading with you to make him a companion, and if you don't, he's going to kill your entire family. And so, you know, that also raises the question for Frankenstein: if I make him a companion, what if this companion is a lot more murderers? Because right now he can still choose to not kill. He's not uncontrollable. He's not killing because, you know, it's an impulse. He's killing because of certain emotions that, in a way, he's still dealing with. He's like a kid in terms of, you know, understanding his emotions and understanding that there are different ways to express and to deal with your emotions rather than being destructive, being impulsive about it. But also he also has the understanding of a full-grown human being. So, you know, it's very complicated for this monster. So I don't know, it was okay. I did enjoy listening to it. I feel like there's a lot of topics that you can definitely discuss. And, you know, as a classic, I think it is a relevant thing to, you know, to keep discussing, because it does bring up a lot of themes. And so, you know, it's a good novel for discussion, because you're presented with these characters that are definitely gray, that are not perfect, that are making these like massive erroneous mistakes. Like, is that ever done that? Like, massive mistakes. And so you see also them like not really dealing with their problems, or like dealing with their problems, but not in the, you know, the best way that you would think of. And so yeah, it's yeah, I really enjoyed this. Another classic book that I finished. So yeah, those are all the books that I finished for this month. I've finished quite a bit, and this is going to be a very long video again. I'm so sorry. I'll try to edit it as best as I can. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will update you guys on the intuitive eating journey that I have. But yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys on the next video. Bye.